Before he became a global symbol of freedom, Nelson Mandela was a father whose children paid the hidden price of history. While he stood at the forefront of the struggle against apartheid, they grew up in the shadow of prison walls, visits monitored, birthdays missed, and a presence felt more in legend than in daily life. For nearly 3 decades, their father belonged to a nation fighting for its soul, and they learned resilience through absence. Tragedy also marked their journey. Some of his children died before him, losses he carried with quiet grief, even as he led a country toward reconciliation. Today, only 2 of his children remain alive, custodians of a deeply personal legacy shaped by sacrifice. Their story is not just about being born into greatness, but about enduring loneliness, loss, and expectation, while the world watched their father change history. In this video, we shall be shining the light on Nelson Mandela's biological children. What happened to them, and where are the surviving ones? Nelson Mandela entered his first marriage in 1944 at the age of 26. He married Evelyn Nthokomase, a nursing student and cousin of his close friend Walter Sisulu. At the time, Mandela was a young law student and activist, beginning his involvement with the African National Congress. The couple had 4 children together, 2 sons and 2 daughters. As Mandela's political activism intensified, he spent long periods away from home, facing arrests and bans. Their relationship grew strained due to his growing commitment to the anti-apartheid struggle and differences in personal beliefs. In 1958, after about 14 years of marriage, the couple divorced, marking the end of his first union. But before the union was dissolved, it bore fruits, which is our bone of contention. 1. Thembekile Mandela. Thembekile Mandela, often called Sembi, was the first child of Nelson Mandela and Evelyn Nthokomase. He was born on the 23rd of February, 1945, in Johannesburg. His birth came at a time when his father was increasingly involved in political activism against apartheid, which would deeply shape Thembi's childhood. Growing up, Thembi experienced long periods without his father at home. As Mandela's political activities intensified, he faced arrests, banning orders, and eventually imprisonment. Thembi spent much of his youth in an atmosphere of political tension and family strain. His parents' marriage deteriorated, partly due to Mandela's growing commitment to the liberation struggle, and they divorced in 1958. After the separation, Thembi largely grew up under his mother's care, carrying the emotional weight of an absent father who had become a national figure but was physically distant from his family. In 1962, Mandela was arrested, and in 1964, he was sentenced to life imprisonment during the Rivonia trial. While Mandela was serving his sentence on Robben Island, tragedy struck. On July 13, 1969, at just 24 years old, Thembi was killed in a car accident. The loss was devastating. Mandela was informed of his son's death in prison, but the apartheid authorities refused to grant him permission to attend the funeral. Thembi's death was one of the most painful personal sacrifices Mandela endured. It symbolized the heavy cost his family paid during the long struggle against apartheid. 2. Makaziwe Mandela. Makaziwe Mandela was the second child and first daughter to Nelson Mandela and Evelyn Nthokomase. Born in 1947 in Johannesburg, her birth came during a period when her father was becoming increasingly active in the struggle against apartheid, balancing family life with growing political responsibilities. Because she died as an infant, Makaziwe did not have the opportunity to experience childhood in the way her siblings did. Historical accounts indicate that she passed away before reaching her first birthday. The exact cause of her death has not been widely detailed in public records, but infant mortality was not uncommon in South Africa during that era, particularly given the social and economic pressures faced by black families under apartheid. Her short life had a profound emotional impact on her parents. The loss deeply affected the family, especially at a time when Mandela was still trying to build both a legal career and a political movement. In later years, when another daughter was born in 1950, she was given the same name, Makaziwe Mandela, in honor of the child they had lost. Although her life was brief, Makaziwe's memory remained part of the Mandela family story. Her passing was one of the early personal sorrows that accompanied the long and difficult journey that would eventually make her father one of the most recognized figures in global history. 3. Makaziwe Mandela. Makaziwe Mandela, often called Maki, was born in 1950 in Soweto. She is the third child of Nelson Mandela and Evelyn Ntoko Mace. Named after her elder sister, who died in infancy, her birth carried both remembrance and renewal for the Mandela family. Makaziwe grew up during one of the most turbulent periods in South African history. Throughout the 1950s, her father's involvement in the anti-apartheid struggle intensified. Frequent arrests, court appearances and eventual imprisonment meant that she spent much of her childhood without a consistent father figure at home. Her parents divorced in 1958, and she was largely raised by her mother. When Mandela was sentenced to life imprisonment in 1964, she was still a young teenager. Contact with him was limited to rare prison visits under strict apartheid regulations. As a result, much of her understanding of her father came through his political reputation rather than everyday family life. Despite these emotional and political challenges, Makaziwe pursued education with focus and determination. She received her secondary education at Waterford Kamhlaba, UWC of Southern Africa, before going to the University of Fort Hare in South Africa. In 1993, she earned a PhD in anthropology at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, Massachusetts. Professionally, Makaziwe has been involved in several business ventures and has served on the boards of various companies in South Africa. She has held senior posts at the University of Witwatersrand and the Development Bank of Southern Africa, and now heads the Industrial Development Group, IDG, with interests in mining and petroleum. She has also played a significant role in managing aspects of the Mandela family legacy, including involvement with foundations and trusts connected to her father's name. Over the years, she has spoken publicly about preserving the integrity of the Mandela heritage and ensuring that it is handled responsibly. She was married to Kamagu Balfour, with whom she has a daughter, Tukwini Mandela, and a son, Dumani Mandela. They were later divorced. She is now married to Dr. Isaac Amua, who is of Ghanaian origin, with whom she has 2 more children, son Kweku Amua and daughter Adjoa Amua. Today, Makaziwe Mandela resides primarily in South Africa. She remains involved in business, philanthropy, and legacy-related initiatives connected to her father's memory. Unlike some of her siblings who passed away earlier in life, she has lived to witness the full arc of her father's journey, from prisoner to president, and continues to be part of the ongoing narrative of one of the most influential families in modern African history. 4. Magatho Mandela. Magatho Mandela was born in 1950 in Johannesburg. He was the second son and last child of Nelson Mandela and Evelyn Ntoko Mace. His childhood unfolded during a period of growing political tension in South Africa as his father became increasingly involved in the struggle against apartheid. Magatho grew up with limited access to his father. By the time he was a teenager, Mandela had been arrested and later sentenced to life imprisonment in 1964. Like his siblings, Magatho experienced the emotional strain of having a father who was both a national symbol of resistance and physically absent from daily family life. Visits to prison were rare and heavily restricted under apartheid laws. As an adult, Magatho maintained a relatively low public profile compared to other members of the Mandela family. He was involved in business activities and later became connected to initiatives linked to his father's legacy, particularly after Mandela's release in 1990 and election as president in 1994. He was married twice. His first wife was Rose Rain Perry, later known as Nolusafo. His second wife was Zondi. He had 4 sons, Zwelivelile, Mandla, Ndaba Mandela, Mambuso Mandela, and Andile Mandela. Makato Mandela is sometimes wrongly referred to as the older son of Nelson Mandela, but his brother Madiba Thembekile Thembi. Mandela was born in 1945. In 2005, Magatho Mandela died at the age of 54. His death was publicly announced by his father, who stated that the cause was complications related to HIV/AIDS. It was reported that Magatho had contracted the disease from his second wife, Zondi. At a time when stigma around the disease remained strong, Mandela's openness was widely seen as an effort to encourage honesty, awareness, and compassion. Due to Nelson Mandela having renounced his hereditary claim and Thembi's early death, Makatho rose to become heir apparent to the chieftaincy that had once been held by Henry Mandela, Nelson's father. Upon his own death, his claim passed to his son Mandla, who eventually succeeded to the title. Nelson Mandela married Winnie Madikizela Mandela on the 14th of June 1958 in Bizana, in South Africa's Eastern Cape. At the time, Mandela was already deeply involved in the anti-apartheid struggle. The couple had 2 daughters, Zenani Mandela Dlamini and Zinziswa Mandela. Their marriage endured long separations during Mandela's 27 years in prison. After his release in 1990, personal and political differences widened. They formally separated in 1992, and their divorce was finalized in 1996, ending nearly 4 decades of marriage. Zenani Mandela Dlamini. Zenani Mandela Dlamini was born on the 5th of February 1959 in Johannesburg to Nelson Mandela and Winnie Madikizela Mandela. She was only 3 years old when her father was arrested in 1962 and 5 when he was sentenced to life imprisonment in 1964 following the Rivonia trial. His incarceration meant that much of her childhood was shaped by absence, surveillance, and political tension. Growing up under apartheid, Zenani experienced the strain of being the daughter of one of the regime's most prominent political prisoners. Visits to her father on Robben Island were rare and strictly controlled. She largely knew him through letters, stories, and the powerful public image that surrounded his name. Her mother, Winnie, also faced banning orders, harassment, and periods of detention, which further complicated her upbringing. Despite these hardships, Zenani developed resilience and a strong sense of identity rooted in the struggle for justice. Mandela Dlamini studied at Waterford Kamlaba United World College of Southern Africa and Science at Boston University. It was there that she first met Prince Thumbumuzi Dlamini of Swaziland, an elder brother of the reigning monarch of Swaziland, King Mswati III, who was studying science at the same university. The two married in 1973 and had 4 children and 6 grandchildren. Her husband had several other children from a previous marriage, Prince Sedza Dlamini being one of them. They are co-owners of Mandela, Dlamini and Associates, an international business consultancy. Her international exposure broadened her perspective and prepared her for diplomatic work in the post-apartheid era. Professionally, Zenani Mandela Dlamini built a career in diplomacy. Mandela Dlamini was appointed ambassador for South Africa to Argentina in July 2012, becoming the first of Mandela's children to enter public service. She succeeded retiring diplomat and former opposition leader Tony Leon. She served in this position until May 2017, when she was appointed South African High Commissioner to Mauritius. Zenani Mandela Dlamini was appointed as the South African Ambassador to South Korea in October 2019. In December 2024, Zenani Mandela Dlamini was appointed as South Africa's ambassador to Sweden. After Mandela was elected president and his divorce to Winnie, Zenani was chosen to accompany her father to his inauguration and become the stand-in First Lady of South Africa until her father remarried on his 81st birthday to former Mozambique First Lady Graça Machel. Today, Zenani Mandela Dlamini remains active in diplomatic and public affairs, carrying forward both her father's legacy and her own contributions to South Africa's global engagement. 6. Zinzi Mandela Longwane. Zinzi Mandela Longwane was the youngest child of Nelson Mandela and Winnie Madikizela Mandela. Zinzi Mandela was born on the 23rd of December 1960 in Soweto, in what was then the Union of South Africa. The year of her birth was also the year that the African National Congress, ANC, launched its armed wing. Her parents were wanted by the government. Zinzi was 18 months old when her father was sent to prison. During her youth, she was often left in the care of her older sister, Zenani Mandela, when her mother was imprisoned for months at a time. In 1977, when her mother was banished to the Orange Free State, Zinzi went to live with her there. Zinzi was not able to complete her education until she was sent to Swaziland. Eventually, her mother was allowed to move back to Soweto. Zinzi's father was offered a conditional release in 1985 by the then state president, P.W. Botha. Her father's reply could not be delivered by either one of her parents. Consequently, Zinzi was chosen to read his refusal at a public meeting on 10 February 1985. Professionally, Zinzi Mandela was multifaceted. She became a poet, writer, and activist, using her voice to address social and political issues in post-apartheid South Africa. In 2014, she was appointed South Africa's ambassador to Denmark, a position she held until her death. In her diplomatic role, she worked to strengthen bilateral relations, promote South African culture abroad, and advocate for human rights. Her tenure as ambassador demonstrated both her professional competence and her commitment to public service, reflecting the values instilled by her father. In her personal life, Zinzi was married twice and had 4 children, balancing her roles as a mother and diplomat. Her life was a blend of cultural, familial, and professional commitments. Zinzi died on the 13th of July 2020, aged 59, at a hospital in Johannesburg. It was revealed that she had tested positive for COVID-19 on the day of her death. She was buried next to her mother, Winnie Madikizela Mandela, at Fourways Memorial Park on July 17th, a day before what would have been the 102nd birthday of her late father, Nelson Mandela. Her death was widely mourned in South Africa and internationally, not only because she was Nelson Mandela's daughter, but also for her own contributions as a diplomat, poet, and public figure who carried forward her family's legacy of resilience, advocacy, and dedication to the betterment of society.